Welcome to this rapid fire explainer. Today, we're breaking down a highly relatable, honestly incredibly cinematic habit, directing totally fake scenarios in your head right before you fall asleep.
Part 1. Your Midnight Mental Movies, directing the scenes that never happened. Let's dive right in, because you know exactly what goes down when the lights go out and your brain suddenly decides to take the director's chair. I mean, have you never won an argument exactly 3 years too late? Picture it. You're lying there in the dark, finally delivering that absolute flawless comeback to someone who, let's be honest, definitely doesn't deserve the mental rent they are still charging you. Or, oh, maybe you're playing out that scene where you casually reveal some secret talent, right? And everyone who ever doubted you is just standing there watching in total awe, leaving an entire room completely speechless. You tweak the dialogue, rerun the whole scene for a slightly better response, and eventually drift off. Now, it might feel a little delusional, but trust me, there are way more of you doing this than you'd think. Which brings us to part 2, the science of paracosmic thinking, or why your brain writes these scripts. Because get this, science actually has a legitimate name for this exact phenomenon. Researchers call it paracosmic thinking, the creation of elaborate, self-directed mental narratives. And it goes so much deeper than just simple daydreaming. This typically happens during hypnagogia. That's that tiny window right before you sleep where your rational, logical brain finally shuts up, allowing the emotional side to surface. Everything you shoved down during the day, yeah, it comes rushing right back up. Psychologists have noted that these scenarios usually fall into 2 distinct emotional buckets. You've got unresolved awkwardness on one side and getting deserved respect, recognition, and closure on the other. It brilliantly illustrates how your brain is actively out there seeking narrative justice.
All right, part 3, editing your inner identity, keeping the draft of your life open.
So daily life rarely hands you neat little resolutions, right? So your brain just refuses to close the draft. These pre-sleep edits are actually a vital form of identity maintenance. You're literally rehearsing who you actually want to be, essentially reclaiming those moments where your true self didn't quite make it into the room. And hey, a study from Yale psychologist Jerome Singer backs us up. He found that people who engage in positive, constructive fantasy tend to score higher on emotional regulation and creative problem solving. Basically, being the main character in your head means you actually have a remarkably sophisticated relationship with your inner life. But let's shift gears for part 4, processing the darker scenarios. When the imagination goes to grief. Because we do have to acknowledge that not every single mental movie is some triumphant victory. Look at these darker mental drafts. Sometimes your imagination goes straight to grief, longing, or dread. We're talking rehearsing worst-case scenarios, dreading incoming confrontations, or playing out those sad, quiet scenes of lost connection, even having conversations with people you've lost. As heavy as it sounds, this is actually your nervous system bubbling up exactly what it genuinely needs to process. These sprawling internal worlds often belong to folks who maybe couldn't safely express their emotions growing up, so that internal space became highly developed to fill the gap. It becomes a continuation of life underground for those whose childhood emotional reality just wasn't acknowledged. Part 5, stepping into the daylight, closing the gap between your 2 worlds. This really brings us to the ultimate question sitting underneath all this cinematic absurdity. Why can't the real you be a little more like the inner you? Think about it. We've got the edited real-world self, busy managing how you come across, constantly performing. Then the unfiltered inner self, who you are without the interference. Most of us are trained to heavily edit ourselves in real time, meaning that unfiltered, perfectly timed version of you only comes out when the lights are off and the performance is over. But experimenting with bringing that inner self into the daylight, even though it's messier and, way more awkward, it is absolutely essential. Why? Because real things compound in ways that imagined things, by definition, cannot. Real actions compound. These scenarios are a map of what you actually want, not what you've settled for. So your pre-sleep mental movies, they aren't something to be embarrassed about at all. They are a literal map showing you who you wish you were allowed to be. So next time the scene starts playing in the dark, pay attention to that underlying want and really ask yourself, are you ever going to try to live inside your map? If you're ready to clear the mental backlog keeping you awake, actually fix your sleep, and rebuild your focus while rebalancing dopamine, check out the 7-day guide bundle detailed in the sources below this explainer. It's time to bring those scripts to life. Thanks for hanging out with us.